core values to valued culture, here is your host, Will Scott, interviewing another CEO about leading culture in their company.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another Culture Czars interview where we talk to CEOs that care about their corporate culture. We call this series From Core Values to Valued Culture, and Rob is Culture Czar at Lindeman, Chimney. Hi, Rob.
Hey, how you doing, Will?
Good. Great to talk to you again. Rob, I'm particularly interested in this interview and talking to you about your story because, and I hope you'll share it, but to me, it's not just about the business. It's a kind of a personal story to you about how you started the business and how you sort of switched from family ownership. But before we get into that, just start by telling us a little bit about Lindeman Chimney.
Yeah, so, kind of joke in our industry is becoming a chimney sweep is nobody's plan A. So, it's mostly like plan J or H,
but for you, it was plan A.
I think it was about the closest human to becoming a chimney sweep is plan A in the United States.
Because you were born into it.
Born into it, yeah. So my father, who was a fireman on the North Shore, had off days. They worked 24 and they're off 48. And on his off days, he cleaned gutters and eventually got into the chimney cleaning business. Mm-hmm. So it was really a side business. While I was growing up through junior high, high school, and college is when my dad retired and started growing it a little more aggressively. But it was just something, I always was following my dad around, being his little buddy, helping him do, odd labor jobs.
Yes. So you did, as a boy, actually go out on site working with your dad? Sure.
Yeah. Some of the best memories I have are us working together.
Oh, that's great.
13 years old and up, doing cleaning gutters and chimney work. Yeah.
Learning the business. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And exactly, what are the services that you provide apart from the obvious of chimney sweeping? What else do you do at Lindeman?
Yeah, so about half our business is in the chimney service line of work in the Chicagoland area. So we clean them, reline them, repair them, install gas appliances, pretty much anything that you would need done for a fireplace in a residential home. We do some commercial jobs, work for some universities, but most of our business is residential homes in the Chicagoland area. Fixing them, make sure they're safe and working properly.
Yeah, and funnily enough, I think you did just about all of those services in our home. Everything from fixing the chimney to installing a gas appliance and it was a beautiful job. I was remarking earlier how well your guys seemed to work together because we had about 3 or 4 different trades at different times, but the handoff between them was seamless and the communication, I think speaks to your culture.
Yeah. It's the guys take a lot of pride in what they do. We do it at a really high level. We are the largest chimney company in the country, and so we do an extensive amount of training, and we work really hard at it. And the guys take pride in their work. But probably the most, like any business, the most challenging part is communicating and trying to do that effectively. So you don't have 3 different, guys that are all trying to do the job right with misinformation. Yeah. That would make things frustrating.
Well, congratulations, Rob. That's pretty cool to be the largest in the business nationally. Yeah.
It's been a fun journey.
And speaking of journey, how did it begin for you? Remind us, why did you originally establish core values and begin on down that road?
Yeah, well, we started the business. It was smaller. There were about 3, 4 employees, maybe 5 when I got out of college, and we were trying to do things right and do the best job that we could, but I found it was, sometimes frustrating. The one example I could give, we had an employee that, remember those Nextel phones?
Yes.
That have those little chirp thing.
I'm old enough.
Right. Once a day, my phone would go, and I'd get that, and the guy would be like, "Hey, Rob, "Are you alone?" Would be the first thing he'd ask. I said, "Well, what do you mean am I alone? I mean, there's like 6 of us here. Like, which of the other 5 people do you want to talk behind their backs?"
Yeah.
Right. And it was stuff like that seemed like increasingly frustrating. Where it was, what I really wanted to do is to be able to go out there and serve the customers and create a workplace where we were, just relying on each other, having fun doing it. Kind of like a, like a functioning athletic team where you're just enjoying it. And it was a lot of times painful, a lot of office politics and
okay.
And this was all new. I got out of college and I didn't know, what I was doing. Didn't honestly particularly think I was going to be running a business. It's kind of something that I grew into.
Yeah. Well, that's a great.
My first appeal was, working outside, working with my hands, and working with my dad.
Yeah.
And in short order, I was less in the field, less working side by side with my dad, and more running a business. So it was something I had to kind of figure out in a hurry.
Yeah, I know that was kind of a sudden thing for you. And it's interesting that you tell a story that makes a great point there. And so I guess you also wanted a culture that was more open, where you didn't have to people didn't hide stuff and talk behind each other's backs. Right.
So that was, and also I kind of had, December of 2000, I was struggling a lot. I ended up getting stress-induced shingles. The business was growing. I hadn't really done a good job of building behind myself. I would just take on more and more and more. I wasn't married in those years, didn't have kids, so I could just lean into all the work and enjoyed it to the point where the business kind of was its own monster, right? And I didn't effectively delegate and build people beneath me, and ended up kind of have one of those midlife crises in my 20s. So it kind of crashed and burned, and that's really what was the impetus to creating the core values. Was like I just felt like I got it all wrong because it was unsustainable. It wasn't a lot of fun, and I don't think the people at the time were particularly enjoying it either.
Was there a moment then that you realized, right, the way I need to start? I mean, why did you start with core values? Why did you think that was going to be part of the answer?
Well, it was where the most frustration was. It was like, wow, if we could just, just all be kind of rowing in the same direction, things would be a lot easier. And it was those frustrations that seemed to cause the largest problems. So, I didn't know much. This was early, I joined EO at about this time, started learning about all these things, reading some books. I at that point hadn't read a book since high school, and I'm pretty sure it was the Cliff Notes version of the book. So, somehow I got through college and hanging around all these EO guys in my forum, and they're all running these great businesses and saying, "Hey, do you ever read this book, Good to Great, or this or that?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't read any of these." And
yeah.
So just really started to absorb, how do people normally run businesses, and that hit a lot on culture and core values.
Okay.
Just reflected quite a bit on what that meant for our organization, because we had really nothing of the sorts.
And what process did you use, Rob, to discern your core values?
So it started out, my cousin, who was my dad's first employee, still works for the company. It started, really with Mike. It was like, if I had 10 guys like Mike, things would be great. Not a lot of drama, hardworking guy, always seemed to have the company's best interest in his mind, and was a pleasure to work with. So I actually followed him around for a couple days, riding in the van, and just looked at everything from what he did in the morning to what he ate to, how he approached the jobs, and, found out what was, the unique qualities he had, that I liked and thought that we needed to have more of to build the company.
Yeah.
So really no major process behind it. Just kind of, looked at other companies that I admired and said, okay, I like this, like that. Some of my EO buddies, I'm like, oh, that was, an interesting phrase. I think empowering work environment is one of our core values, and I think it came from John Domsky, Adorable.
Okay.
I think they had something similar. I could be wrong, but
hey, Rob, but before you say any more of these, your phone is slipping. I think. Yeah, there you go.
As soon as you said that, I realized
I was starting to lose you.
Not getting lower. My phone was going higher. It's like I'm singing.
Yeah, it's so cool that we can do this on a phone. But so you're starting to talk about one of your first core values.
Yeah, so we kind of sat down and mostly I went over with my cousin Mike, and a lot of them were just from me. These are ones that companies I admired and put them together and tossed things around and kind of used the litmus test, like this employee that would call me, and ask if there were people, anyone in the room, right? Would the core values filter that out? Would it hit something that says, that's not really an empowering work environment. We don't give and receive unquestionable trust.
Yeah,
in there, right? It was starting from a default of suspicion or trying to catch someone doing something, and it bothered me.
So in my process, there's two things I encourage. First of all, what are the CEO or the owners, the founders' values? But also, maybe what are the values of one of your best employees? And in your case, that's Mike. And so you you sort of got words from that, and then you wordsmith the words into what you're talking about. So empowering work environment was one of them. What's another core value at Lindeman?
I lost you a bit there.
Oh, you lost the audio? No, I was asking, so it sounds like one of your core values is empowering work environment.
Right.
What's another one?
One's pretty much what I think everyone strives to is customer service.
Okay.
And we strive to do that at a big level. And I think everybody, strives to do that. No one's like, I'm really going to try to be the low cost, mediocre service provider.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose people do, but but that was one, and that meant a lot. In our space, is that we were going to do it right. And in the earlier years, there wasn't knowledge on how to do it right. Even we were kind of pioneers. But that was a commitment we made that we're going to do the job right, or we're not going to do it. So there's, that was one that we, I just felt we got to be rooted in that. Another one was integrity. Got to have uncompromising integrity when we're out there, because there's all sorts of circumstance. You don't know the first thing about your fireplace, right? Mm-hmm. Right, and you got to be able to trust every person that I send to your home that they're going to, diagnose the problems properly. We're going to fix them properly. They're going to respect your property, your family if they're there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're in and out of people's homes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got to have guys and gals with integrity that are appreciate the opportunity we have to serve the customers.
Yeah,
So those were a couple of the first ones, but the empowering work environment is, and I think always will be, the most challenging to maintain for us.
Is there anything? What do you do to try and maintain that one? Hiring the right people. Yeah. I think that's where it starts. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So we, at our best, we try to use the core values as a filter towards hiring. Mm-hmm. Does this person represent all these values of our company? And then stand firm to them, throughout their career at the company. And then there may be points at which they're unaligned, and that's where we got to part ways.
Yeah.
Because it's not a good fit, and it's challenging. But the empowering work environment is one of the more softer ones, right? So if we went to your home and they just, didn't do a great job, you were dissatisfied, you didn't like it, we're going to hear pretty quick. There's a feedback loop that's fast and immediate.
Yes. From the client,
the customers will tell us. So that's an area that, and even honesty and things like that. It's if people aren't honest with the little things, they're not going to be honest with the bigger things, and it's that's usually easy to smoke out. But how people are acting, with their peers on the job site, in the office, that's where it gets a little more challenging, because you got a lot of different personalities, right? And just the human condition sometimes is pretty messy, and we always remember.
I don't know if you meant to use the pun there, easy to smoke out, but is that something you use around the office? Smoke out the issue?
It just dawned on me. Smoke it out, right, yeah.
So do you have any processes that you use, I don't know, a nomination system or anything that just, do you try and use the words every day? Well, what do you do to kind of make the core values come alive and thrive in the organization?
Yeah, so I'll sit down with the new hires, and that's part of the process, and go through kind of the history of the company, the core values, the vision, where we've been, where we're going, and talk about that. When we hire a new employee.
Okay.
And then weekly meetings. Particularly for the service guys that are out in the field, where we talk always about sales, safety, and service. So those are the three things we talk about, and I'll come on, or my cousin Mike will, once or twice a year talk about the core values of the company as a reminder. This is what we're trying to do, and celebrate. We're recently starting kind of little gold stars for guys that customers call up and are saying, Barrett was he did a tremendous job, and recognizing that says a core value of ours, exceptional customer service, and reminding, celebrating when we win.
Yeah, very cool. How many core values do you have, by the way?
I think it's 6.
Okay, and how do you think most of your employees could recite all of them, or 4 out of 6, or something like that? I mean,
I'd love to say they could recite them all, but I think 4 out of 6 would be, fairly good.
Yeah, but they do. So you're using them to that extent where there's that kind of awareness about them. Yeah. And Rob, one question I'd like to ask is, as a CEO of your own company, you've got a lot of things to prioritize, right? You've got to prioritize making sure you make a profit, and you're growing the business, and you're satisfying clients, and marketing, all of those kind of priorities. Where does managing culture fit for you in that mix of priorities?
I put it right up at the top, and to be frank, it's a lot easier to manage the culture when it was smaller.
Yeah,
it becomes a little more challenging now that I have managers and so forth, so they have to carry that out. So it becomes a little more challenging. But in my opinion, if the culture is humming, the strategy that you're going to implement works. People are just willing to push it forward. But if the culture piece is off, we've had periods where it was we're spot on. People from the outside would walk in the building and are like, something's different here. Why is everyone all happy? I mean, that sticks out as one of like the high points. And we've had our slumps too, where we had issues and growing pains and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout those waves, the times where the culture wasn't as strong as it could have been, it was terribly hard to execute on even the best strategies.
Yeah,
the flip side was like you can't lose when you got you got everyone rolling in the same direction.
That's beautifully said, Rob. So that's why it's worth investing in culture, right? And it doesn't, not that it takes a lot to invest in, but you can get a huge return, and it's more fun. And
sure.
As you say, if you've got the culture clicking and everyone's on board, then everything's easier. Whereas if it's you just said yourself, if it's the alternative, everything's hard, Yeah.
So it's
have you had
what the appropriate amount of time is, but you're right. It is probably the one area you get the biggest return on the investment of your time.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's up to the owner, or CEO to hold that. It's my job.
Yeah.
So when the culture's off, I'm not doing something in my job. I'm not inspiring or instilling, enough of that vision and the values of our company in the people that are managing it for me.
Yes.
So
yes.
I got to double down.
Yeah. You got to be the biggest Culture Czar in the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I imagine have you found that it's to do with the people, the mix of the people you have? So when everything's going great and the culture feels strong is when when all the people basically are fitting the culture, and when it's not so good, usually you've got one or two people dragging things down. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, that's seems to definitely be the case.
Yeah.
And then oftentimes it's hard to act on that, because there's, we don't really have a hard, fast metric on how this person is firing on our core values,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Is he, how is he or she creating an empowering work environment? How are they working with others, right? It's kind of a softer item. I suppose there are some tests that you can use, but oftentimes they're performing well under all circumstances.
Tends to be hard for
a top performer who's just a little grumpy and say, all right, this isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
And those are the really tough decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, but usually when you make those and you exit those folks, usually everyone feels a sigh of relief and it feels better, and now you can go on. But it is hard. It's really hard for some, particularly if you've got a good engineer or somebody that's really good at executing, but they don't fit the culture. It is harder to let them go. But usually it's the only effective way in the end.
Right, and it's tough. And then my default is always to see the good in people. So there's part of me that's like, well, eventually the others will pick this person up. Yeah. But in my experience, it looks like a Snickers bar, it smells like a Snickers bar, it tastes like a Snickers bar. It's generally a Snickers bar.
I've got another food analogy for you. When I was growing up in Zambia, my Boy Scout master used to say, because he would talk about, a troop and you didn't want to have any bad members in a troop or brought the whole troop down. And he would use the expression, we grow monkey nuts in Zambia or peanuts basically. And he would say, if you have 10 nuts and one of them's bad and you eat them all together, they all taste bad. And the sort of similar analogy is that, in our companies that we're only as good. I always find this kind of rather hard to say, but we're only as good as our worst employee. Yeah, because that worst employee can bring us all down, but also if they're having an impactful touch with a customer and it's not the right kind of touch, we're only as good as our worst employee. Yeah. That's
the challenging part.
Yes.
Yeah, I always say that business would be easy if it wasn't for the people.
Yeah, I know. And
the employees, the customers, we're all human, and like I said, at times it gets messy. But
people sometimes say, is it possible to change culture? Well, yeah, it is. If you change people, usually you have to change the people at the bottom of your core value measurement. Can you think of any particular stories, Rob, where you just, which is the story that you tell when you get the chance about somebody who demonstrated a core value at some point in the company's history?
That's a good question. Often the story I most often tell is when, what it felt like when it was broken, and like where we wanted to go towards, and describe the company that we want to be in. My default is really I want to show up here and enjoy work because we're here almost more than we are at home. So nobody, like building the company, I was like I didn't want to build a company that was miserable to be at.
Yeah.
That's kind of the default. And there's experiences of when we have fun, whether it be the company picnic or holiday party or conventions where we all get together. It's that piece where we're bonding and having a good time and really enjoying working hard and moving things forward. Those are kind of the experiences I generally share.
Yeah. Hey, Rob, your phone's on the slide again, by the way.
I'm sliding down. Sorry about that. Just let me know if it
there. Yeah, no, I agree. So I think a lot of people perhaps avoid a lot of CEOs avoid the softer side of running a business, kind of talking about feelings and values. But boy, if they do, it's usually it's worthwhile, and of course, it creates an environment of more fun, as you were just saying.
Yeah.
So, Rob, as always, really appreciate the chat, and thank you for going through those questions. Is there any sort of final tips that you would leave with our listeners around culture?
I would say you can't address it soon enough and hold it tight. I feel pretty fortunate that I kind of had a crisis or defining moment where I felt I got it all wrong. And I found that a lot of entrepreneurs too have that moment. I mean, one of the fellow chimney companies in the Nashville, Tennessee, speaks at our trade shows and stuff. Talks about there was the moment he went and drove by his parking lot, and there's all these beat up trucks, and his wife referred to it as some comment. It goes, "Oh, it looks like such and such convention." Don't say their name, right? And he's like, "I want to have people that are driving nice cars and feeling great about what they do and proud of So he had that moment where he essentially let everyone go but himself.
Wow.
And I'm going to build a company that is much different than that. Yeah. So I've heard a lot of those stories where you almost had to start over or reinvent yourself. I just feel fortunate that it happened early enough that it wasn't we were small enough that it was easier. I think if you get a larger company, I think it'd be really hard to do. You can't, the kind of cake is baked already.
Yes. So I think especially, it's easy to focus on the business and the business kind of heuristics as opposed to the people. And of course, our businesses are basically about people, and we're working with people. So focus on the people part first, and then the business tends to flow a lot easier. So I guess that's the story you just told. Well, that's awesome. Thank you very much, Rob, and really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us today. And thanks, and to our listeners, thanks again for tuning in, and get more interviews like this from CEOs who care about their corporate culture at cultureczars.com. Thanks a lot, Rob.
Cool.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at cultureczars.com, and we'll see you next time.